and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson and I'm filling in for my buddy Shannon Penrod. Shannon is going to be joining us a little later in the show for the 47th Annual Autism Society of America National Conference. We'll connect with her and see what she's up to down there in New Orleans. But first, in a minute, we'll be joined by Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh for Ask Dr. Doreen. This is your chance to ask Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, BCBA, founder and president of CARD, and also ACT Today, Autism Care and Treatment Today, your questions about your child's behaviors and get the answers from a world-renowned expert, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. In our second hour, Let's Talk Autism, I'll again be going solo, and we're going to be talking about, as I said, be joined by Shannon, and also we're going to talk a little bit more about what ACT Today does, our programs, and we're going to be bringing on our grant assistant, Viridiana, who deals with the families and processes the grants. So if you have questions about how all that works, she can answer them for you. So the entire program is meant to be interactive. Matt is going to show you some ways that you can interact with us. While I remind you that Autism Live's homepage is autism-live.com. You can watch the show live. You can ask questions, and you can even check out our 100 most recent episodes. Right now, it's time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen.
And we are back with Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. You've got a new look today. Tell us about it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's great to be here. It's great to be back.
With you.
I was in Jamaica, and I actually saw a whole lot of kids in Jamaica. And I'm originally from Iran, as you know, and
Yes.
what happens to us Middle Easterners in humid countries is that our hair becomes like an afro. So I had a lot of stuff I had to do while I was there, and I decided, you know what, I'm just going to do this because it just stops me from having to deal with my hair. And I kept it now because next week I'm going to be in Hawaii, where we have a lot of families all over the islands, and we're trying to see if we can actually open something there.
Great.
So I decided, you know what,
Great.
going from, and that's why I'm kind of black too. I've become very dark in the sun. So everybody, please forgive my appearance today.
I remember when I went to Bali, I had my hair done like that. They
Did
said
you?
Women do it on the beach.
Yeah, it's
That's what
crazy.
you pay $15 and have your hair. And I wore
Exactly.
it for months when I got home.
Oh man,
Yeah.
I wish I could see you with that hair.
I
You must
loved
look
it.
amazing.
I loved it. It was the Bo Derek era too.
Exactly, but it's
Yeah.
so nice because you just don't have to do anything at all.
So easy, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a delight. So we're going to get right into it. I actually have a question for you,
Sure.
A topic for you. Recently, we had on the mother of Owen, the young man featured in Life Animated. Have you had a chance to see?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't.
So perhaps we should save a little bit for another time after you've seen the
Sure,
film, which
sure.
is getting rave reviews.
It's fantastic, I've heard.
Now, in the film, Owen he regresses at the age of 3. He can't be reached. He's nonverbal for quite a while, and then he does a lot of echolalia.
Mm-hmm.
And the family is actually told, he keeps saying this one thing over and over and over. And the family is actually told by a therapist that it's echolalia, it's nonsense talk. But one day in his room, as he's saying this, he's watching The Little Mermaid. And the father sees that he's not saying want juice or whatever the nonsense they thought it was. He's actually parroting something Ursula in The Little Mermaid said. So the father immediately starts talking to him in Disney talk, and Owen starts parroting back every single line from every single Disney movie.
Right.
They decide this is the way to get to Owen.
Interesting.
And the rest of the film is basically based on this premise that there are things sometimes that our kids do that can be built upon to build genuine interest. I mean, Owen is now an artist. He has 3 jobs. He's lecturing around the world. He's age 24. He's living with help in a residential facility. But what I'm asking about this kind of, they call it affinity therapy is what the family has named it. Building on something your child could use as a window into the world.
Of course.
How does ABA
interact with that, or
contrast with that? Because
Sure.
the therapist that was with him said, oh, it's echolalia.
Right.
Don't pay any attention to it. And if the parents had not discovered that this was in fact a way to reach Owen,
right.
and how do we know when our children are saying something that's just what I know Wyatt's therapist calls silly talk, don't answer it, or if it could be a key to reaching them?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great question. So, first of all, there's many sides to this question. So, first of all, the more dogmatic you are about anything, the more you become blind to other things. Okay, so, some ABA providers are extremely dogmatic towards various things. So they'll say all self-stimulatory behavior, including echolalia, is just that. It's self-stimulatory behavior, and across the board, we couldn't care less what it is. Now, from my perspective, we try to actually pay attention a little bit to self-stimulatory behavior and determine actually what is it. And we still don't know a lot about self-stimulatory behavior. There's echolalia, there's repetitive behavior, like
Wyatt splashing.
Exactly. Exactly. Or, kids, even younger kids, they line things up, or they'll turn the lights on and off, whatever it is. And they're all different forms, if you notice. So, let's talk about some of those. And they're all, from a behavioral perspective, they're all classified under this thing called repetitive, restrictive, stereotypical behaviors. Right. And it is true that the ABA way to deal with them is to ignore them and to basically teach a more functional form of communication. And much of the time that works because the child understands that this isn't working, nobody's understanding this, so I better do something that they are understanding. Okay, now, but what's very important, Nancy, is to go back and look at the different types. So let's say there's splashing, right? Splashing is probably most likely gives the Wyatt a sensory pleasure. Yes. Whether it's a tactile sensory or later we've now come to find that it's more visual actually. It's not that they like the feeling, it's the way they see it. And most of the time what they're seeing, I think, is the reflection of light in the water, which we don't see very well, but our kids do. And it's just such a fascinating diamond type vision that they enjoy that. And that's a very self-stimulating and awesome experience, so they try to do it again. Some kids, of course, will do things that line objects up. Wyatt had a lot of this too, which was he had to go from one place to another. He had to go outside and touch the water and then come back, and he had to have these routines, and that's extremely similar to obsessive-compulsive behavior that we see.
He still has a lot of
that. He has a lot of that. And we know as a fact that a lot of those types of obsessive-compulsive behaviors, which are you can't really find meaning to them, but the child feels like they have to do it, and if they don't do it, it's just a huge compulsion, and they're obsessing over it until they get to do it. That's exactly obsessive-compulsive disorder, which really comes from gaining a sense of control when you have anxiety. All people with OCD, what it is that they start thinking about something and they lose control of the thought, which is my hands are dirty, or things have to be in a particular order, whatever that thought is. And that thought becomes so just obsessive and that they have to do a compulsive behavior, a compulsion. They have to go wash their hand, or they have to go touch various things, or they have to look at things in a certain order, whatever it is, and then they can calm down from the anxiety. That is an anxiety disorder. It's something that's fueled by anxiety, okay? So now, of course, it's very, very possible that, and a lot of kids will watch something on TV and they will repeat it. Now, whether that is it's the only thing they understand because for whatever reason they've been paying attention to that, or they may not understand it at all. A lot of times you see that the kids don't really understand it because they will just use it out of context and they'll just repeat. But it's what they think is communication. I'll give you an example. My mom was giving me the other day a lot of old video footage of when I was a child, and I'm in a lot of this footage. I'm sitting and it appears like I'm writing, and I'm like 1, 2, 3 years old or something. And I said to her, "What was I doing?" And she was like, "Well, look, I'll show you." And I had books and books, notebooks, where it was just scribble. I would scribble because I thought I'm writing. I'm doing what like an adult that I've seen does, right? So I was writing. In my mind, I was writing a journal. I was writing a book. And I had books of these, not 1 or 2, like I had 10 of these where the whole book was just scribbly lines. But they were short lines, long lines. They looked like words, okay? So in my mind, I was doing what adults around me do. And a lot of times I see with our kids, they are repeating this stuff. It means nothing to them, but what they're doing is they're speaking. They're doing what they see us do all the time. Right? So imagine if you live in China, right, and you hear language, you hear people talking all the time, but you have no idea what it means. You're still going to eventually be able to imitate the sounds. It might not mean anything to you, but now you're part of that world. So often what I find with my kids when they do verbal self-stimulatory behavior, those are the kids that are extremely interested in somehow engaging, but they don't know how to. They're trying those are the kids who really want to interact with others, but they're not good at it. They don't know how to, so they're imitating what they see. They think that's all they have to do is they have to imitate what they see. So that's kind of the one aspect of my answer. The bigger point here is this. We should never, ever just look at something and put it in a box and say that's what it is, because we don't know enough about autism. I grew up in an era in the 70s where nobody knew anything about autism, and we were just kind of still in the Bettelheim era where people were saying, well, autism really has to do with the refrigerator mother, and it has to do with the parents being cold and all that sort of stuff. I mean, that's not that far off. That's 50 years ago. And then when you look at like 40 years ago, we didn't know anything about the biomedical, and even 30 years ago, 20 years ago. I mean, it's only been about 20 years that Bernie Rimland brought a group of people together and said, hey, this is something that's more chemical, neurological, biochemical. This is not a learned behavior. This has nothing to do with parenting. I mean, that is only, Nancy, if you can imagine, 1995. That is not a long time ago. So we can't look at autism today and say we know everything about it. We can't just make assumptions. We have to do certain things, that we know work. For instance, we know if you simplify language, kids learn it way better. We know that some kids are very visual, and they can sort things out visually and learn better. Auditorily, they're very confused. So we know it's important to figure out with each kid, should I go visual or should I go auditory? Which one is their strongest suit, right? So we do that. So many of us do that. A lot of ABA providers don't do that. A lot of ABA providers think, hey, he can either get this or he won't get it, So, in fact, one of the other big differences for CARD and all of our folks is we actually teach skills. We don't just focus on the challenging behaviors. We teach a lot of skills, and the more skills the child learns, the less of the challenging behaviors occur. All of that, so everything we know for a fact, yes, we have to use, But the area of self-stimulatory behaviors, whether there's repetitive language or any of the self-stimulatory, we know very little about what causes them, which is why it's important to always pay attention to them. This is like the example you gave is similar to, I had a child who he was very smart academically, but whenever we tried to communicate with him, he had a very, very hard time paying attention. And we realized only after having his eyes checked numerous times did we realize that he had double vision from here to 8 feet out. Double vision, so obviously he couldn't focus. So there's no question that we always have to be very skeptical about the things that we feel are the way things are and just question ourselves all the time. Now, if you think about it, a lot of our kids, like one of my kids was just not very happy in his therapy. And I told the parents, please go and find out what things he's good at. Many of our kids are musical.
Right.
Well, they started looking into his ability to play the piano, and he ended up being a virtuoso. In about a year, he was playing everything and anything you could ever imagine. He now travels and has performances all over the country, and he's not even, he hasn't finished high school yet. I mean, he's a brilliant kid. Many of my other kids, just like Wyatt, are artists.
Yes.
And when you don't know that until you actually see their art or give them the opportunity. You know, I always think of one of my kids, Leland, who when he was about 2, 3 or so, you couldn't really tell. We didn't know that he was such an artist, you know. And by the time he was like 10 or 11, his art developed to the point where I will honestly say that he's one of the most incredible artists I've ever seen. I mean, his work is all over. He has websites. He has exhibitions in museums. I mean, he's absolutely unbelievable. And these are now, there's many of one of my kids, Nikki, now actually his art, this is his job. He does art, and he does it with his hands because he has such delayed motor skills and ability to really focus on these things, but they sell for like each art piece sells for $1,000, you know? So there's a lot of things like that where originally someone could have considered it as self-stimulatory behavior, but really it is the vocation of the individual.
Exactly. So I think as parents, though, we fear that we might miss that little clue.
Right.
You know, when I watched the film, I thought, I kind of felt
like, what am I not paying attention
I was
to?
kind of like, oh my God, did I miss things that could have been built upon and chained? And you know, were there things that I just dismissed as echolalia and ignored the behavior that could have been keys to him?
Right. So because I know Wyatt, his echolalia is simply his attempt to communicate.
Right.
Okay, he is just trying to communicate. That's what he's trying to do. And there's no question, the better he communicates and if he develops friendships or relationships, that will decrease.
Okay.
But he just, and you know, honestly, Nancy, a lot of our kids are alone. They're lonely.
Yes.
You know, they need to have someone else to communicate with.
Yes, they're very lonely.
So just like any other child, they're trying to communicate in a lot of ways.
Okay,
but
so
you know,
parents should just be aware.
Absolutely, and don't think that you're. If a child has a significant skill, it won't go away by you ignoring it. It'll keep coming back. It'll keep coming back. It'll show itself in one way or another.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, as you can see, you didn't have to do much to encourage. I mean, his art is his art, and he loves his art.
Yes, and it's also a practical way for him to stem. He puts the paintbrush in the water like this, then he paints.
That's right.
And
I mean,
the paintbrush and he paints.
You know, one of our dear older children whose parents we love as well, who this used to be his primary self-stimulatory behavior, and he's now a fantastic drummer.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So we have a lot of that sort of thing going on.
That's right. Okay. From Facebook, looking for help with my ASD daughter who is 8 and talks incessantly. I have access to your show on Roku or via the web. If you could direct me to specific how or help, I would greatly appreciate it. It's mostly questions after questions. I relate to this. I've got the same issue going on.
Yes.
What do you suggest?
So, you know, that's a really good question, and it's a tough one because, as I said, the kids are trying very hard to communicate. And sometimes they don't even need the answer to the question because they already know it, or you told them 2
Yes.
seconds ago. They just
Yes.
repeat it because what they're trying to do is communicate. They're not trying to get the answer to the question. See, remember I said a lot of times they'll be just repeating stuff without knowing what it means? And this is a form of that. They're asking questions because they know if they ask a question, they will get an answer from you. So they will get a communication, an exchange. And really, that's what they're shooting for. It's not so much the answer to the question. It's about getting contact with you answering something and saying, good job, by the way, that's really cool. That's what they're seeking. It's that interaction. So when they say a question, obviously, if you haven't answered it, you will answer it. If you have answered it, then you would want to prompt the child and say, do you know the answer to this? And just prompt them to say the answer themselves. That's sort of one way to deal with it. If it's just an incessant number of questions back to back, you could always measure the number of questions an individual asks per hour and say you can only ask so many questions and limit it, start shaping it. But the most, I think, effective way to deal with this is to try to, on a schedule, and this is hard for parents because they're busy doing so many other things, but if you can, on a schedule, before the child asks questions, spend 5 minutes out of every hour just having social dialogue with your child.
Okay.
So 5 minutes out of every hour, 10 minutes out of every hour, maybe 5 minutes out of every half hour, just set a timer. It's the beginning of the half hour. Go over to your child, spend 3 or 4 or 5 minutes just having a dialogue and an exchange. Anything. You ask, they ask, whatever, and then go do your own thing.
Do you suggest that it be on the topic that the child tends to ask the most questions on? Like Wyatt asked me, what color is this every 5 seconds while he's painting at night? Mom, is this fuchsia or is this pink?
Okay.
Mom, is this
That's awesome.
Is this a cadet blue or a navy blue? Is this a sapphire blue or a light blue?
And do you answer it?
I answer him once. I think that's so and so. And then he'll ask it again. He'll come in and he'll say, with his little paints, and he'll ask me again, is this a cadet blue or a navy blue? And I said, I answered that. I think it's a cadet blue.
Okay. So what happens if you say, I don't know, what do you think, Wyatt?
I do that sometimes too.
And what does he say?
He'll say, I think it's he'll answer.
Right. So he's only trying to interact.
Okay.
So he just doesn't realize that a question that has already been answered can't be asked again.
Okay.
So here's a great way you could do this.
Right. And for this mom too.
And for this mom too.
Is asking repeated questions.
Right. Is he at the point where he can read well? Everything.
Yeah, very well.
So write down his question every time he asks it. Write it down in a little booklet and the answer.
Okay.
When he comes back, tell him to look at the book first.
Okay.
If it's there, he has to ask you a different question.
All right. So the
Really
mom
simple.
can do that with her daughter.
Absolutely. It's just a matter of helping the child keep track of the questions they've asked. And it'll lead to additional language. It'll lead to forcing Wyatt now to ask you something else.
I see.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But do that for sure, because that's an easy way to stop it. But also, don't let, if you do that thing where I said do 5 minutes every half hour or 4 minutes every half hour, it'll reduce his need to come and gain interaction.
Okay.
Because he won't, it'll take control over from him to you. Because right now, whenever he has the need for interaction, he'll come and ask something silly.
Okay.
What'll happen is you'll be providing that to him on a schedule.
Right.
And it'll be a schedule that you do. So it'll be like, okay, it's time. I'm just going to go and talk to him about something. It could be anything. It doesn't matter his thing or something else, whatever it is.
So you say
Take away the stimulus control.
every half hour.
Whatever works for you.
All right.
I mean, it's hard for parents to say every half hour because you're cooking,
we're
doing
things, but
million.
try to engage them. So if the mom, I hope our mom is listening that wrote this in from Facebook. It's something we can both do together. Is engage them every half hour.
Yes.
About 5 minutes of conversation. Keep a notebook if your daughter asks you a question.
If she can read.
If she can read. Or maybe you can even draw it, right?
If you can draw it.
So she knows, and you can tell her to go back and look at the notebook.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Wonderful. And from the live feature, how do I deal with repetitive questions? We just answered that.
That's so funny.
Hello, I'd like to try a token board with my 6-year-old son this summer. How do I explain it to him, and do I ever take away tokens for misbehavior? Do I use it all day or just a few hours? I want it to help when he runs around the house and annoys his siblings and doesn't listen to me. Thank you.
Tokens are very, very important. I'm going to probably go on for a little bit about
Okay,
tokens,
good.
because this is not an easy thing to do tokens.
Right.
There's many aspects to token economy, and I'll try to remember as much as I can and go through it. I would recommend, a very, very good source for setting up a token economy is if you go on the ibehavioraltraining.com, ibehavioraltraining.com, which is our Institute for Behavioral Training. You can also Google that website. There's actually a video module called Setting Up Token Economies, and it's more important to do that because there are certain very specific key features about a token economy that make it fail or succeed. And I'll try to go through it and explain them, but I might forget something because there are very specific things you have to do. So the first thing is you identify a behavior that you want the individual to do, and that's the behavior that you want to reinforce, obviously. Now, the only difference with a token economy...
Not do, though, because we have
Certainly.
We have token economy.
Absolutely.
We have smiley stamps for not doing 4 things.
Absolutely.
So,
either
right?
one, thank you. Yes. So it could be a behavior that you want the individual to engage in or not engage in. Doesn't matter. Once you've identified that, the only difference between token economy and direct reinforcement is that you're now giving the individual a symbol of the reinforcement. So let's say you first have to, very, very important, and you do this, I would do this every single day. In fact, we do it multiple times a day, is figure out what is reinforcing to the individual at that time. Because, just think about yourself. Like, for instance, I don't know, at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, a glass of wine might be, or coffee. Whereas, 9 o'clock in the morning, it might be a protein bar. Whatever it is, your reinforcers change during the course of the day. If you're tired, a reinforcer is taking a nap. If you've slept a lot, taking a nap becomes punishing. So reinforcers change value. So it's very important to constantly evaluate what is reinforcing.
So assess with the child. Do you
Once.
give them some options?
Okay, so that's a different subject, but thank you.
Sorry.
You're so involved.
Keep
You're such a
going
good. You're such a good ABA mom that you ask all the right questions. So, how you establish what a reinforcer is? There's numerous ways. If you really know your child very, very well and they're pretty stable, you could do what's called an inventory. So you can fill out a list, and the list lists pretty much anything that could potentially be a reinforcer, and you could just check it off and say, yeah, I think this is what he'll want now, and so on. One of the ways that we do it is called forced choice. So you put out a number of items that you think the child might want, and they go for one. Therefore, that's the thing they want right now. So there are many different ways to establish what the reinforcer is. I mean, if your child is at a functioning level where they can tell you what they want, great, that's what they want. But you have to frequently assess that. So at least maybe twice a day, right? Because your mood changes from the morning to the afternoon. So let's say you've now identified the child wants 3 things. Now you have to establish value for those 3 things. So let's say he wants chocolate chip cookies. That has a certain value, and he wants time time to play with mom, just like interaction with mom, and that's a certain value. And then he wants to go to the mall and buy something, and that's a certain value. And they each have different values, and how you're valuing them is basically in 2 ways. First, you value them based on how often can you administer this thing without it becoming without it losing function, without the individual being satiated. So like if I give you 1 chocolate chip cookie, you're going to still want more chocolate chip cookies. But if I give you 100, you're going to be sick of chocolate. I'm going to take that reinforcer and turn it into an aversive by giving you 100. So it's important that all of them have a measure associated with them that maintains the value. That's why we cut our chocolate chip cookies up into tiny little morsels, because it will continue to have value. If I give, each time the individual does something right, I want to give them a chocolate chip cookie, they're going to get sick of it.
Right.
So that's, and then like going to the mall, for instance, becomes extremely difficult because you can't take the child to the mall every single time. Right. So the more it becomes difficult to give something, the more the reason to have a token system in place. So let's say you now have, the best way for me, token economies, there's numerous ways. I mean, there's so many different types of token economies. Let's talk about two, which are probably the most frequently used. So one would be, let's say, the type of token economy you said, which is, there's so many different ones that come to mind. So let's say it'll be, for every period of time that you don't engage in this behavior, I'm going to give you a token.
Let me give you an example of Wyatt's, which is, I will not, when he splashes, sometimes he puts the pool water in his mouth, like every couple of splashes. So obviously unhealthy. I will not put pool water in my mouth. I will not sneak food without asking mom.
Right.
I will sleep in my own bed all night.
Okay.
And I will take a shower instead of a bath.
Okay.
So each day he does all those four things. I punch it with the smiley face.
And what if he doesn't?
If he doesn't get the smiley face.
Exactly.
Now, after 12 smiley faces, he gets a gelato with mom.
Okay.
After 24, he gets a DVD.
That's a fantastic token system, and it is a very advanced token system, and I'll tell you why. Because that's why I'm telling all of our viewers to actually go on IBT and learn how to do these. Because you, and I'm sure with Wyatt, it started much smaller.
It's much smaller, and I do want to break it down for this mom with the 6-year-old.
We will go there right now. So it's very small. You start very small. You literally start with something that can be administered right away. So it'll be something, in Wyatt's case, it would have been something like, you know, in this sitting, like right now, in the next half hour, if you don't put water in your mouth, you're going to get a star. Each time that you don't put water in your mouth, you're going to get a little token. And when we get 4 tokens, we're going to go do something fun. So it's much more narrow, it's much more direct, it's much more immediate. So the two important things, and then of course you do it with another aspect, and then you turn it into a big one like what Wyatt has. But the two important features are the value of the token. You cannot have it become, you can't have it have so many that the child forgets what they were working for. It has to maintain value. So it's like saying, like right now with Wyatt, he's actually learned to work a lot. Like that's a lot of requirement. And then he has to not only, he won't get a reward at the end of the day, he'll get it after how many days?
After 12 and then
12.
Another 12. Yeah.
And that's amazing. That's incredible. That's like huge, and that's very functional. Most of the time when you start with a child, you will give them, let's say, 3 tokens, and they'll choose a reinforcer right away. So we're talking every approximately 5 to 10 minutes, the tokens are traded in for an actual reinforcer.
So it seems like with this mom, because she's trying to, her main question is, how do I explain it to him, and do I ever take away tokens from his behavior? Do I use it all day or just a few hours? She wants it to help when he runs around the house and annoys his siblings and doesn't listen.
Perfect.
So what would be the simplest thing for her?
Okay, well, I wouldn't, so the intervention that I would put in place for running around the house and annoying the siblings is a little different. And let's talk about that, and then we can set up a token system too. But to answer your question directly, if you were to set up a token system, you would set it up first for a very short period of time, never for the whole day right off the get-go. You would set it up for, as I said, about 5 minutes. You'd have the child, let's say, do 5 things that you tell them to do, and then each time they did it, they'd get a little sticker or a chip, something like a poker chip, and then when they have 5, they will trade it in for some object that they truly want, or some activity or something that's a tangible object they want. So that's how you begin to teach a child a token. In his particular case, you could do it during the time that he's running around bothering his siblings, but I can tell you right now that the intervention for this should be slightly different. You don't really want to set up a token system just yet. If he's running around bothering his siblings in the afternoons during a certain time frame, he's bored.
Is
and
it the
he's
function of that behavior? He wants to communicate
exactly,
with his siblings?
exactly.
So do
With
you-
someone, with
Okay.
someone. He either wants to communicate with his siblings or he wants to get your attention by ticking you off. He's trying to interact. He's trying to. So the best way, honestly, to stop that is to actually make sure he has a very engaged activity for that time period. So it could be anything. You could hire a swimming tutor for that time frame. You could have an academic tutor for that time frame. You could have a babysitter for that time frame. You could be doing things with him like baking, cooking, whatever it is. But very, very clearly, the only reason he's doing this is because he doesn't know what else to do and he wants to get your attention or he wants to get their attention. So before he engages in something disturbing, engage him so that he's already busy doing something else. He won't have the opportunity to bother them. That's the way to deal with it. A token system is usually, and then later you can always come back and actually, teach him to occupy himself. We don't have that skill yet. So it can't be expected of him because he doesn't have that skill. That's a different lesson. If you go on skillsforautism.com, we have these lessons that show independent play. They're called PlayStations. And the way you do that is you set up timers and stations. So let's say it's a 2-hour time frame, I think. Does she say the time frame?
She says a few hours.
Yeah. So let's say you start with a 30-minute time frame. And what you'll do is you'll have stations of activities. So like you'll have a puzzle. That's not a very complicated puzzle. Let's say 2 puzzles that each take 5 minutes. That's a 10-minute station. Then you'll have another station which will be a drawing station, and that'll be like a 5-minute station with all arts type stuff. And then there's another station which is, let's say, an alphabet completion station or whatever, which is another 5. You have to have stations that have activities that have an end result. So, and what you have to teach your child to go to the station, set the timer for, let's say, 5 minutes, and they engage. And as long as they engage in that activity for 5 minutes, you come and you give them a bigger reward. Now, that's where you can give them initially a cookie or a physical, tangible reward that they like. And in the long run, you will give them a sticker, a token, for which later, after they do 3 or 5, they can trade it in for a reinforcer. But right now, for him, what you need to do is set up these stations, teach him each station so that he engages in it, so that your goal right now is to have your child for 30 minutes. 30 minutes is a pretty long time, to be honest. I would start with maybe 10 minutes, and I'd have a couple of activities. And if he can engage himself 10 minutes in those activities without disturbing you or the siblings, you better throw a party and give him a big reinforcer. Then you extend the 10 minutes to 30 minutes, and that allows him to engage himself for 30 minutes. After every 30 minutes, you need to go back and now do some activity with him for a few minutes, let's say 5 minutes, and then he does another 30 minutes and another 30 minutes and that sort of thing. And you're not ready to jump to a token system just yet because there's no behavior in his repertoire that you could reward. He needs to have a series of behaviors in place to keep himself occupied. So teach him that first.
Okay. All right, let's move on to a question about hand flapping. I heard your advice to help with hand flapping, but I'm not having much luck. My son hand flaps and jumps up and down when he's excited, like at the pool and at camp. Some days I feel like it's nonstop. Redirecting typically doesn't last long. He goes right back to the hand flapping. Please help.
Yeah. And hand flapping is a really tough one because usually it occurs when our children get excited, and they will do it with a variety of things, whether it's at the pool. Pool is probably a very high excitement. I can see that. Or in front of a video that they like. Usually they'll do that. So, you're just going to need help at this point. I think previous ideas we've given are things like give him something to occupy his hands. Like, really, it takes a lot of time and effort, but he can't hand flap if he's occupied with his hands. Like, for instance, if If you get him interested in a little puzzle, or if you get him interested in a Rubik's Cube, or if you get him interested in just stuff that he can play with in his hands, like those scoosh balls, you know, or stuff like that, it's incompatible with hand flapping because he can't hand flap while he has something in his hands. So it helps to do that. We've also suggested things like teaching the child to put his hands in his pockets, teaching the child to sit on their hands. There's a lot of stuff like that. It is a self-control issue, and until he can gain control over it, you're going to have someone there present to help you. It is sometimes these behaviors feel like, you know, it's 1,000 times in 5 minutes that you're saying, put your hands down, put your hands down, I know, but which is why it's important to have the child engage, because the more the children are busy with something that's helpful or beneficial or adaptive, the less they have the open time to do whatever it is they want to do. It's a very tough one. And, you know, let's also identify perhaps environments that increase the hand flapping. As I said, swimming pool is often one that excites kids. Watching videos a lot alone is often one. And attach a condition to it. So if you are going swimming, you cannot hand flap. You have to, you know, hold this item whenever you want to hand flap. If he hand flaps,
So maybe
you have to
set that
leave
up
the pool.
before they go in the pool. Say to the
If there's
child.
any hand flapping, we're going to leave.
Yeah.
But see, the thing is,
That's
Nancy, like,
sometimes tough to follow through on. I know that.
oh, it's
one.
very
Okay.
hard to
Or
follow
how about
through.
we're going to get out of the pool and we're going to hold your, you know.
No, once you've hand flapped, it's too late now, right?
Okay,
So
okay.
the whole thing with it is that you have to produce some sort of antecedent control, but we're giving all these guidelines knowing nothing about the functioning level of your child.
Right.
So if your child comprehends if so, you know, like
Consequences.
that sort of statement, then of course you can tell them hand flapping, no pool. If they don't understand it, then it's pointless because they just don't understand what you're telling them. So now you need to just engage them, keep them busy, keep their hands busy. And if they hand flap, really don't do those activities. Keep your child away from the activities that promote hand flapping as much as possible.
Okay.
By the way, going back to the previous question, which we didn't respond to, you asked, one of the questions asked was, can you also remove tokens? And yes, you can. That's called a response cost system. It's a very complicated token economy where you give and remove. I don't want to even go into it because I think you should just actually go on IBT. Token economies can get very complex, but yes, you can always remove tokens as well.
I'm not sure if you can answer this next one. Good morning. We have Marketplace Florida Insurance. ABA seems to not be covered. Do you have any other options?
So there are many options, and I don't know what's going on in the state of Florida right now, and I don't know which particular insurance companies cover or don't cover, but I would recommend that you call into our 1-800 number, and they will write down your information and go to our contracts department, and our contracts department knows. They can check.
Okay.
In fact, we do insurance checks for people all the time, so I'm sure we will know other types of insurance that do have coverage.
Okay. This is a really good one. My son was diagnosed with autism at age 3, had card intervention at age 5, but not, now that I'm looking back, enough hours. He is now 26. Is there any reason that further work with ABA could not help him at this age? I would really like to teach him about danger, crossing the street if possible. I'll answer that one. You should keep doing it because a kid can learn at any age, and especially something like crossing the street. Do you agree with my answer?
I absolutely agree. Kids can, in fact, adults learn things all the time through ABA. So ABA is effective whenever you do it. I'm very sorry that we didn't do enough hours. I hate to hear that, and it happens so often, and we're having that struggle right now as well, Nancy, because we get so many funding agencies that cut the hours and don't realize how important it is to do a lot of hours at an early age. It's just the most important thing. But realistically, it doesn't matter, especially danger issues. We have several programs that are just focused on danger. So yes, you absolutely will benefit. What you should ask for when you go to your ABA provider, whoever you go to, is ask for a focused program use the word focused, that actually goes to only deals with danger and safety. And there's a lot of things. I mean, it's not just danger. We're talking crossing the street. We're talking hazardous materials. We're talking strangers.
Being in the kitchen.
Being in the kitchen, fire. I mean, there's a million different danger things.
Right.
So it is very important to make sure that you do that, and absolutely it'll work, no matter what age.
Matt, I didn't hear you tell me how much time we have.
We should maybe take a break.
Are we taking a break? Okay. We'll take a break. See you in a minute.
Potty training is different for every child. A child could come in with absolutely, no control over their bladder, and as long as that's not a medical issue, then we can certainly approach it behaviorally and give them the tools they need to be successful, just like any other skill that we would teach.
Well, we think he's learning to pee on the potty. No big successes yet, and lots of accidents. Here is the laundry from today.
For some of our kids takes, just a couple days. And then for other kids, it can take months and months and months. And then when you're looking at complete independence, it can take years.
Hey, you have to go pee-pee?
There's a lot of different ways to tell if a child is ready. We look for a couple different things. Probably the most important is parents saying, I need this to happen, I'm ready. Second is, a child showing interest in the bathroom, and some of it is simply age. It's time to go ahead and work on this.
What are you doing? Pooping. You're pooping?
You first start with teaching the child what they need to do on the toilet. The basic thing we want is for them to drink as much liquid as possible. It's inevitable that if you drink a bunch of liquid, you're gonna pee.
No, I can't help you pee. I can hold your hand, but I can't help you pee.
Ultimately, what we want is that, the child, as soon as they're put on the toilet, they urinate. So that's step one. Step two is usually working through the amount of time that they're off of the toilet and making sure that they're not having accidents during the time that they're off. So this is kind of the bladder control stage of things.
So the purpose of the potty log is just to see how long it takes them as soon as they sit on the potty for them to actually urinate, and the amount of time that he's able to hold his urine. And with the log, we're able to visually see how long it takes them each time, if they have accidents or not. He's on a half-hour potty schedule, so if he doesn't go when we take him, then we have to take him in 10 more minutes. So every 10-minute intervals until he does go, and then we reset the clock, and it's 30 minutes again.
Okay, buddy. Okay, last chance to go pee-pees. Do we reset it for 10?
Oh, what does that mean? What does that mean, Jack? It's potty time! We can come play after. Hurry!
What we hope happens in this time is that the kids will learn how to initiate going to the bathroom on their own. This is oftentimes the hardest part of potty training, is because they get so used to somebody telling them when they need to go that they're not really recognizing the signs just in their own body of when they need to go.
Oh, he wet himself.
Big wet? Was it a lot? We can reset to half an hour now.
The biggest thing for parents is not to give up. The other big tip, and I think pitfall that a lot of parents fall into, is putting their children back into pull-ups or diapers, especially if they're starting to have accidents. And this is probably the worst thing that you can do. They need to recognize that feeling of fullness in their bladder and take themselves to the bathroom, or tell an adult that they need to go to the bathroom.
What do you have to do? You have to put your pee-pee in the potty. Okay, give it a shot. See if you can put it in there. There you go. There you go. You're doing it. Yay, Jack. Big fish for your pee-pee. Big fish for your pee-pee. Yay! Woo! Yay! Good job. What a big boy. High five, high five, high five, high five, high five, high five, high five.
right? I'm
That's
so
okay.
interested in what you're saying. Okay, we have a little bit of time for one question, and it is, hi, Shannon, Nancy in this case, and Dr. Doreen. It's West Virginia mom here. I had a question update. My update is that this week something very new for us is occurring. I think it's a good sign. My daughter has just started showing opposition when I make a suggestion instead of just going along with everything I say. Yesterday we had to go to the grocery store and I picked out her snacks for her because until now she wouldn't choose. This time I grabbed a snack and she looked at it and said, not want that one, Mama, me pick it, Mama. At that point, I would have let her pick anything that's alive with this newfound independence. I have a question though. Now some of her behaviors seem to have more than one function. Can that happen? When I make her BIP on skills, can I target more than one function for one specific behavior? Thanks so much for everything. She's making huge improvements. Thanks to both of you, especially Dr. Doreen. Love and hugs from West Virginia.
Oh my gosh, you're such an
You live for
amazing
that,
mom.
don't you?
I do, and I love moms that are just, I just like, I'm so in awe of moms who take it upon themselves to follow. It just gives me goosebumps. Like to just do this kind of stuff on your own. Like
so tough.
you know, it's easy for me to sit here and say, hey, these are the things to do. I lived them for all of my life, but to actually go out there and to do a BIP on skills and to follow through with it and all that sort of stuff, God bless you.
God
And
bless you. My hat is off to you.
honestly, and may you have a huge success because you totally deserve it with all the work you're doing. So yeah, most of the time our behaviors have multiple functions. So, and yes, our BIP builder is built in a way where you can plug in numerous functions and it'll give you more intervention stuff.
Okay.
So it'll give you options of what to do. But yeah, absolutely. And how smart are you to have figured that the child has now multiple functions for various behaviors? But it sounds like really good stuff is happening. And I love the fact that she's like asking for things that she wants and they're not necessarily the ones you suggested. I love that.
Right. So that independence is a really good thing.
Oh, it is a great thing. And the use of language there, that's fantastic.
Right. Okay. I want to know if you are doing any podcast, webcasts on PECs.
Right. No, I don't think we are. We do occasionally internally. We do have a lot of ongoing continuing ed for our staff. But the best place to go for that is to look for information about PECs and how to do a PECs program is on the Institute for Behavioral Training, IBT website, which is ibehavioraltraining.com. Go there. I am certain there's a training on PECs, which, for those who don't know, Picture Exchange Communication System. And I'm certain there's several trainings on how to set up a PECs system, the levels. PECs has multiple levels of training and how to use a very basic to a very complex PECs system.
Okay. And I think we have time for one more question, right? Okay. My son is 22 years old. He has mild autism, very introverted. Says he sometimes hears voices. He has no insurance and doesn't take meds. I need help. What do I do?
You do need help. The first thing I would do, obviously, at this point is to get him insurance. And if you can't afford insurance, you should be able to get Medicaid for him or Social Security, one or the other, and you should definitely apply for that. That is your first goal, because without that, everything else is just, that's the biggest obstacle to overcome. If you have funding, which will come through Medicaid or Social Security for you, you will be able to get access to the next things. Then the next step after that is to get a diagnosis. You need to take him in because at this point it could either be an ASD type thing going on or it could be schizophrenia, and it's important for us to identify which one it is. Hearing voices could be just him explaining to you the thoughts in his head, or it could literally be hallucinations that are occurring as a result of schizophrenia. So that is very important to identify because the treatment will be different. If you identify schizophrenia, then we're looking at initial medical treatment by, medication that will actually help reduce the voices and then teaching various other things. If we're not looking at schizophrenia, then it's a matter of doing a lot of behavioral intervention and teaching the child or the adult how to differentiate between voices and thoughts. And so that's one of the things we do with our adults. But you have to start with an assessment, a diagnosis, because unless you do the diagnosis, we don't know enough to help. So please first just focus on getting funding, and thank God you do have access. You should, if you're in the U.S.
Right.
But if you're not, let's write back to us, and then we'll try to see what other resources you
Very
have.
crucial that this young man gets help, because hearing voices is something that's very disturbing, obviously, and
Very.
we don't want to let that get out of control.
Exactly,
We know
exactly.
That sometimes these things can lead to disaster, and there is help available for this.
Absolutely, and you need help. I mean, you cannot take care of an individual who has this level of disability. So please just spend the time to try to look and see what funding sources you have.
Okay. All right, Doreen, thank you as
It's a pleasure, always. It's a pleasure.
And I happen to love the hairdo. I think it's
Thank
great,
you.
and I know it will serve you well in Hawaii.
Thank you very much.
And you're not here, I think,
Next week. I'll be back the following.
Okay, you'll be back the following week, and Shannon will be back with you
Great.
the following week. But I just love spending this hour with
Me
you.
too. Thank you so much, Nancy.
All right.
Always a pleasure.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
And please stay with us, because we will be back with Let's Talk Autism, and my cohort, Shannon Penrod, is going to be on the phone with us from New Orleans, from the conference there, and let us know what's going on. And we have some information for you about all of the programs at ACT Today and the work we're doing across the country, and how our grant process works. So stay with us. I'll be back soon.
That's cool. She's up there.
We skipped a few in the middle, didn't we, love? Jack Riley likes to watch videos about the ABCs, or the ABBCs, as he likes to say. He kept throwing a fit and misbehaving when he wasn't getting what he wanted. We finally decided it was time to turn off the computer. And of course we did that without warning him.
He threw one of the biggest tantrums I've ever seen from him, because he's used to getting his way now, because now that he can say it, we're supposed to reward him. But now he's testing us.
While we are 100% ABA advocates and we believe it is working on our son, there is a little fallout in reinforcing these requests, that he doesn't quite understand now that he doesn't get everything he wants.
Bye-bye! This is completely typical. When requesting isn't something that happens naturally with your child, you want to create as many opportunities to practice the skill. So you reinforce each time they request, because it will increase the frequency they demand. Once the requests are at a rate you want, then you should begin to fade the frequency of reinforcement and teach new advanced skills, such as having the child wait for a desired item or let them know that they must choose something else. These are all life skills. Not every desire will be met, but you are more likely to get what you want if you communicate your wants appropriately.
You want some applesauce, buddy?
Yeah, why don't we put the car over here,
Yeah,
bud?
let's take the car. We're just gonna take a break. Take a break. Take a break. Do you want this? Do you want the car?
Do you want more car?
Settle down. Settle down.
Okay,
Settle
do you
down.
want more car? Okay, and you want applesauce? Okay. Alright, take another bite. One more. There you go.
Nice, that was a good
Okay.
bite too, buddy.
There you go.
Good bite.
Alright. Yeah, I should have warned him before I took it away.
We get reminded all the time. It just works so well.
It does, it really
and then
does.
You forget to do it. And
Okay, 10 more seconds and bye-bye car, okay? Bye-bye car. 10 okay. Okay. Okay, let me have it. Bye-bye car. No, that's okay. Settle down.
Thank you.
Take two bites, please. Do you want the car?
Yes.
Two bites. 2 bites. Good talking.
One. And then
good
two.
job. Good job, buddy.
Good job.
Good job. Good job.
How has mealtime been going with you? Still the same? Still
Yeah, it's going well. Yeah. You know what he had last night? Did Cheryl tell you?
No.
We are documenting this because this bite of spaghetti that he's about to take is the first ever meal that Jack Riley has had exactly what Mommy and Daddy are having. With the exception of the cottage cheese. He would eat that too, but we're going slow. I realize it's just spaghetti, and lots of kids probably eat spaghetti, but our kid never did. Not for us, anyway. And now, he's like just a regular kid having dinner with Mom and Dad.
Good boy. Say choo-choo. Choo-choo. Say here we go. Here we go. All right, make it go down. Go down. Whee! Yay! Good job. Should we build more tracks? Okay, sure. Here you go. Do you want the green one or the blue one? Green. What ways? You want which one? Black. You want black? Oh, well, none of the ones I offered you. Cool. I like that. I like it. And he's definitely requesting more eating and drinking, which is really good to hear. So I don't know if they want to introduce him to other things. It's up to them. But just the fact that he's requesting to drink is a big deal for him. Hey, Jack, one more minute, okay? Say, okay. 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 He has an issue sometimes, like inflexibility a little bit, with just the trains in particular. When I'll ask him to come over to do a program real quick, he'll want to clean up the trains up every single time. With the other toys though, like I can call him over, he can take a break, he's totally fine, and then after we're done with our program, he'll go back and he'll play. With the trains in particular, I don't know why he wants to clean them up every single time. So I'll run some programs and we'll see if he has that issue still. Hey, Jack. Good looking. Come here. No, what are these? What's this? What's this one? Ears. Yay! There you go. Ears. Very good, kiddo. Hey, look at me. Hey, look over. Yay! There you go. What are these? Fingers. Good job. What are... Mouth. Mouth, yeah. What's this? Head. Very good. Okay, one more sticker. What are these? Fingers. Good job. All right. Yeah, that transition was a lot better. Where's Piglet?
Hi, I'm Kara Kaczynski, the Pocket Occupational Therapist, and we're here in Dallas, Texas at the Future Horizons Autism Super Conference.
Hey guys, welcome back to Smarty. Today we're going to be making homemade glow-in-the-dark bouncy balls. So let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are 2 mixing bowls, something to stir with, measuring spoons, borax, cornstarch, water, glue, and glow paint and food coloring. So, step one, you're going to take one of your measuring bowls and you're going to measure out half a teaspoon of borax, 4 tablespoons of cornstarch, and 4 tablespoons of water. Then you're going to mix that all together. I'm going to set this aside. In another bowl, I'm going to mix my glue and my glow-in-the-dark paint and any food coloring I want to use to make it a special color. I have 2 separate bowls with the mixtures in them. Now I'm going to put them together, letting them sit for the next 15 seconds, and then I'll stir them together. It's important that you let them sit for a moment before stirring so they can do their magical thing. Now that the 15 seconds is over, I'm going to stir together the mixture, making sure to stir thoroughly until I can no longer do it anymore. You'll see what I mean in a second. Now that I can no longer stir it, I'm going to start rolling around my hands to make a ball. And voila, very own homemade bouncy ball. Woo! Well, I hope you had fun with this activity today. Until next time, craft on, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Actually, Shannon will be here momentarily. She is down in New Orleans, and she's going to be joining us from the 47th Annual Autism Society of America National Conference. So we're going to hear what's going on down there. But first, let's get to some in the news. And I'm sorry that I have to look down to read a lot. We don't have a teleprompter here in the studio. I don't know if any of you wonder why it's so effortless for news anchors to just look at the cameras so they've memorized everything. They're reading from a teleprompter device. So if I cast my eyes downward, please excuse that because I would love to be looking straight at you the whole time. There's a lot in the news this week, one of which was really fascinating to me because I've always wondered about this therapy that I have never tried with my son. It's transcranial magnetic stimulation. I had read about it from time to time, and it seems as though there is evidence that suggests hope with this therapy. There is a mother who started a foundation to explore this and make it more available to others. The mother is a Minneapolis woman named Kim Hollingsworth Taylor. In 2012, her son, age 14 at the time, and on the high-functioning end of the spectrum, was part of a trial of TMS, once again, transcranial magnetic stimulation, that seemed to relieve a few of his autism symptoms for several days. It made him able to cope with stress and anxiety better, and cognitive tasks, and really key to this would be the ability to read social cues that he had never had before. So it says that we all carry an invisible frame of reference in our heads that filters our experience. And apparently, TMS has a way of kind of filtering these experiences, and that frame of reference gets turned upside down by a brief encounter with a powerful magnet. So, pleased with the results for her son, Taylor found a way to get her son more treatments in Boston twice a week over the course of 10 weeks, even though TMS had not been approved by the Food and Drug Administration for autism symptoms. By the way, it is still not approved by the FDA. So this is not commonly available. It can only be done by taking part in clinical trials. During this time, Taylor says her son's autism symptoms disappeared. He went from being a boy with no friends to being a boy who was asked to the homecoming dance by 4 different girls. Now, that seems like a miracle, doesn't it? The change thrilled her so much that she started a small nonprofit to advance research into the use of TMS. She has a background as a financial analyst in the medical technology industry. She called the foundation Clearly Present. So if you'd like to find more, I'm sure you can Google Clearly Present. The phrase her son used to describe how he felt after the treatment. It's like there's more of me here now, he told her. The problem is the benefits began to fade after just a few months. 3 years after his last treatment, Taylor's now 18-year-old son is back to where he was before he started TMS. And he says he doesn't want to try it again if it means disrupting the family life, moving to Boston with his father for another 3-month stretch. So here is Taylor committed to organizing scientific research, soliciting funding, and she said she crawled on broken glass to get to make things easier for her kid. So she is profoundly sad that there's no place closer to home that could offer TMS, and she's frustrated that this is the case. So they're not really sure, that why this works, and researcher quoted in the article says that it's still in its infancy, and the studies have been very few, by the way, just 13 in the medical literature to date. However, the very well-known John Elder Robeson described his own experience in his latest book, Switched On, a memoir of brain change and emotional awakening. He said that alterations of TMS were life-affirming, but they were tinged in sadness too, because his insights into other emotions showed him how troubled most people's inner lives are. That's a very, very interesting perspective, that perhaps that's something that so many on the spectrum are spared, knowing how troubling emotional inner lives are. So the best way to look at this is to go into see if there's clinical trials, and you can go to clinicaltrials.gov. That is clinicaltrials.gov to see if they're doing any research on TMS. And the Clearly Present Foundation and Taylor are still trying to arrange for more studies to be done, because it's a very promising area. There's been so much coverage of autism lately in film, in television, so many books out there, obviously, with the rise of the epidemic. There's so much more that we can read and watch about it, and also less stereotypes. We've come a long way since Rain Man, and there's a new show that is on the BBC, and it's called The A Word. Obviously, there is a show here also, a series here on Autism Live called The A Word. I don't know if they maybe got that title from us, maybe a good title. They heard it and took it, but perhaps it was just a coincidence. But the review that I have here said, from the Boston Globe, says that The A Word has really, really taken on autism and shown it in a smart, sensitive, and sustained way. It's the work of writer-producer Peter Bowker, who spent 14 years as a teacher to children with disabilities, so he certainly has insight into autism. And it focuses on a 5-year-old boy with autism, who they say is played by a remarkable young actor named Max Vento. His family, all residents of a sleepy, everybody talks kind of town in England's mountainous Lake District, in the weeks after he's been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. The A Word is primarily about the disorder and its impact, also broadly concerned with the issues of communication that plague every member of the Hughes household. There's an inflexible family patriarch, the grandfather. There is the boy's fierce, loving mother, and the husband that has very mixed feelings about the diagnosis, as so many parents do. And And there are lots of other players in it, but overall it sounds as if the series is very well done. And the review goes on to say, what drives the show forward and makes it landmark in its portrayal of the disorder too often stigmatized or left undiscussed is that second all-important A word, acceptance. So it's on the Sundance Channel, not the BBC. It's a 6-part British series, so I take that back. It's not the BBC. It is on Sundance TV. So it's said that it started debuting stateside Wednesday, which I believe is tonight. So Sundance TV, the A word. You should take a look. A story about the CDC, Utah autism data. There has been a whistleblower lawsuit filed, and Dr. Judith Pinborough Zimmerman, who is the former principal investigator for the CDC's Autism and Developmental Disabilities Monitoring Network in Utah, has filed a whistleblower lawsuit in the U.S. District Court. Dr. Zimmerman charged University of Utah's researchers for CDC's network with publishing data under people's names who had not done the work, and the data contained uncorrected errors. Depositions from Zimmerman and her former colleagues suggest that the alleged data errors were serious and had the potential to produce major differences in reported autism rates. In the 2008 network report, Utah autism rates were the highest in the country at 1 in 47. In the 2012 report, Utah rates plummeted nearly 20%, 1 in 58, as most other network sites reported either rising or stable autism rates. So an analysis by Health Choice revealed that a number of criticisms of the CDC surveillance program, they had selected a partial and unrepresentative sample of states to track, changed the sample in a biased fashion over the years, and then took too long to report out the data. Today's 2012 report is over a decade behind the problem, giving us autism rates for children born 12 years ago. So a whistleblower lawsuit, once again, filed against the CDC in terms of the way it reported the rates of autism in Utah. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to come to you with Shannon, who is down at the Autism Society of America's National Conference, and we're going to find out what's going on there, who some of the great speakers are, anything that Shannon has heard this morning that she wants to talk to us about. And then after we speak with Shannon, we'll be talking a little bit about ACT Today, Autism Care and Treatment Today. I am the executive director of that organization. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the founder. And we're going to be talking about what we do with our programs across the country and how our grant programs work. And we're going to have Vera Diana, who is our grant assistant, join me to talk to you about that grant application process for those of you that want to learn more. So stick with us. We'll be back in a minute with my buddy, Shannon Penrod.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi, welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Lisa Ackerman. We're here doing allergy-free cooking, and I brought my sister with me today.
Jamie Davis, thanks for having me.
A lot of people are asking about an allergy-free breakfast, and breakfast can be full of crap.
But it's full of
cereal.
crap, and it's hard to do. We don't have time in the morning. We're in a hurry.
We're going completely nut-free. The recipe is not
personality. We can't do anything about.
Yeah, can't do anything about that. So we're going to start off first with. I'm using sorghum and brown rice flour. I find the texture good, and I've added some flaxseed meal. We talked about that last time, flaxseed meal for poop. Almost every one of our kids has a poop issue. What's next on the recipe is the quinoa flakes, baking powder, cinnamon, and the xanthan gum. It brings the glutinous texture back into the flour. And often what happens with these recipes is they can fall apart. This one holds up nicely. I like it. For the folks that are egg-free, we have a ton of egg replacers. One of those can be the arrowroot starch or bringing back some additional flax seeds. So there's a lot of options to go eggless, but we're going to go egg full in this one. For sweetener, I use the maple syrup. I stay away from refined sugar. What I'm adding now is the coconut milk, maple syrup, and a little bit of the coconut oil. And we're going to add in the raisins, craisins, and chocolate chips at the end. I find that chocolate chips can coax people to eat some really amazing things. When we started, Jeff had 42 food allergies, so we had to get creative in how we cooked. So nuts were a big, big issue. What I like now is that he can tolerate so many more things after start doing this diet. So let me show you how you can deal with this sticky stuff here. You get your fingers really wet, and you can push it down. So my oven has been preheated. It's at 350 degrees. So we're going to just throw this in. Like I said, I like it around 23 minutes, and the magic oven says, I'm done. Looks like. Don't you love magic ovens? They're awesome. There we go, pops right out. The texture of these, and it's so pretty, it looks almost like a big chocolate chip cookie, but you actually made it healthy. But you can be my guinea pig. Tell me what you think.
That looks really good.
Doesn't it? So the textures and the colors in there are just beautiful. So the raisins are for you, the chocolate chips are for your kid.
I can't believe it's gluten-free.
I know, right? It doesn't taste like, you know, crap. We're wrapping up another cooking show. If you have feedback, you can email us at autismlive@gmail.com. We're, of course, on Facebook. You could go to facebook.com/autismlive. And, of course, Talkin' Now has thousands of recipes. Join me there, and we can cook some more later on. So thanks for joining us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild, let's get.
We are back, and I have got with me now on the phone my buddy Shannon Penrod, who is normally here with me in the studio for Let's Talk Autism. Hi, Shannon.
Hi, Nancy. I'm here
How?
At the conference.
Yes.
There's Wes standing right here with me.
Oh, and oh, great! I've got you and Vince. That's so wonderful. Glad to have you both with me. So, how is it? How is it down there in New Orleans?
Okay, well, let's start with hot and muggy.
Hot. Always, always, but I like that kind of weather. So you're there for the 47th Annual Autism Society of America National Convention. Is that right? Or conference?
Yes.
Okay.
Conference and exhibition. And Vince and I are at the card booth in the exhibition hall, and I wanted to talk to you about a couple of different things that they have going on here that I think are particularly cool. One of the first things that we noticed is that they have a badge system when we get here. You can get a green badge. It comes as a kit, so you can attach to yourself. So there's a green badge, there's a yellow triangle, and then there's a stop sign. And the green badge says, you know, I'm approachable. I want you to come and talk to me. Anybody can come and talk to me, but I may need some pointers. I might have some difficulty. The yellow one says.
That sounds like one that That sounds like one I would wear.
Well, I didn't know that they've done it before. This is my first time.
No, I mean I said that sounds like one I would pick.
Oh, the green one.
Yeah.
But you don't have trouble. But although, you know, I got one for myself. But then the yellow one says, if you don't know me, I would prefer that you not approach me because I'm, you know, making my way here. And the red one, which I'm particularly into, says, please do not approach me at this time. And I got one for me. I got one for you, Nancy, because the conference says anybody can use them. It's funny because I talked to Jem about it. Jem did not want them because he saw the green one says, I can communicate, but I'm having difficulty. And he didn't want the green one, but when I explained the yellow and the red one, he wanted the red one because there are times of the day when he just had enough.
Right.
And I love that he can wear that signal and everybody at the conference can know, don't go and talk to him right now. I think it's super duper smart. And he gave us that to Vince. Yes, I've got to say.
Okay, great, great. Well, tell us what some of the great speakers are and what's going on down there.
There are really incredible authors that are going to be here, Nancy. You want to tell them about Different Key, The Story of Autism. It was one of two books that was just hotter than hot this year about autism. Of course, the other book, and that author is here as well, is Steve Silberman. We've talked about that a lot, about Neurotribe. He's going to be here speaking. Some of the people that are going to be speaking are people that are regulars on Autism Live. Jen Yakos is going to be speaking. I'm going through our booklet here because they're all, Michael Tolson, the painter, is going to be painting here. I want to, so Jen's speech that she's giving is teaching perspective-taking skills to individuals with ASD. Love that. And then Kara Kaczynski, who's the pocket OT, she's going to be doing a teen and his OT present executive functions and organization. She's actually doing it with her teenage son, which we're really excited about. And that's just like not even the tip of the iceberg. You know, that's just some of the things.
One day. I mean, this is a 4-day event that has tons of just great presenters and an exhibit hall that has everything you can think of from, different services and books and, anything you can think of that's going to be able to support a family they have here.
Nancy, they've got a chair here it's called the Hug Me chair.
Mm-hmm.
And it's designed specifically for kids on the autism spectrum. I sat in it, it's wonderful. We're gonna be doing some Facebook Live interviews with people. There's a handwriting expert here, a woman who's on the spectrum herself who had handwriting issues, and she's got a new method of teaching people handwriting, which I'm really excited about because my son, we want him to have to read his own writing. So she says she can help with that. There's just a lot here, and of course there's more exhibitors getting here and setting up. Later on today, we're going to do a Facebook Live with the couple that you and I talked about last year, the Autism in Love couple that did their wedding.
Yes.
Autism wedding.
Yes.
Anita and her husband are here. We just met them. And we're going to be doing an interview with Michael Tolson, the savant painter.
Yes, who we've had on the show.
Yes. In fact, Nancy, I was showing him, this could tell you, I was showing him some of the pictures of Wyatt's most recent paintings, and he is so excited about them and talking about his color choices and how defined his color choices are.
We mix the media.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I love hearing that. I love hearing that. Yeah, I've got to get... Okay, go ahead.
It's a pretty good time here, and it really hasn't even started yet.
Just get going.
Yeah, just in the setup phase. Vince and I are going to be here with Jem all week long at the card booth. So if people come to the conference, they want to stop by in the exhibit hall. We're right by where the big exhibition room is. And Jem has interrupted the live interview to tell me that his phone charger died. I don't know. The iPad charger died. Okay. All right. That didn't work. Thank you. I appreciate it. So, because we've been having trouble having the iPad charged, but we'll get that fixed. But really excited to be here. And again, we're going to be doing some Periscope stuff. We're going to be doing Facebook Live, and most importantly, Vince and I are going to be here talking with the people.
Talking with all the families.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are so many families here. It's so exciting.
Well, we hope that if you are down there at the conference, you will take time to stop by and say hello to Shannon and Vince. And we hope you enjoy it. And is there going to be a way to look at this, or is it streaming live? Do you know how can people go to the Autism Society of America's website to find out more about how to access some of these speakers?
Well, I know that the Autism Channel, which is on Roku, is going to be streaming some live stuff. So if you have Roku, you can be watching the Autism Channel for that. We're going to do, if you go on our Facebook, we're going to do some mini interviews on our Facebook Live, and check out our Periscope too if you're on Periscope, and we'll be doing some little catch-up stuff here too. But if you want to watch more of the conference stuff, make sure that you go to Roku and go to Autism Channel.
Okay.
They're going to be doing cool stuff.
Okay.
And I also didn't mention Sesame Street is here, and Julie's going to be doing an appearance. Everybody's going to get to meet and greet with Julie, the new character from Sesame Street on the spectrum.
Yes, great. All right. Well, it sounds like lots of fun. I wish I was down there with you guys and, eating some crawfish and beignets and drinking chicory coffee. But I know you're busy working all day.
About the boiled oyster.
All about the what? The boiled oyster? Charbroiled oysters. That food in New Orleans is so good. Not very much of it on the GFCF diet, I might add. But the oysters are. All right, well, we missed you this morning, Shannon, but I know that you'll be back with me here next week. And I wish you a great trip and a really productive conference. And I know you're going to be, you're on Facebook Live, right?
Yes, we already did one that's there on autism-live Facebook. This is a warm-up. We're going to be doing some interviews all throughout the week.
Yeah, definitely check it out each day. There'll be lots of great interviews, a lot of different things, and basically give everybody a snapshot of what's here.
Okay, so they can go to the Autism Live Facebook page.
Yes.
Okay.
Facebook and go to Autism Live.
All right, sounds great. All right, you guys have a great time, and I'll see you when you get home.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for filling in this morning with Doreen with me, and thanks for doing Shannon and Nancy all on your own.
You are welcome. Okay, bye-bye. All right, so we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the mission of ACT Today, Autism Care and Treatment Today, our programs, what we do, and how we might be able to assist your family. Stay with us.
Mid-swing on this wonderful day, this wonderful walk with Mr. Matt Asner. Talk to us about today's walk. Do we have any facts, figures, numbers, or just pure emotion?
Just pure emotion. I'm about to get the numbers. We'll see what it is. Okay. I think it's probably close to 1.6, probably. That's my feeling. But it's incredible. We had 55,000 people plus here today. And honestly, I've been here 7 years. It gets better and better and better. So.
And really what you've fostered here today is hope. I know that's your favorite four-letter word.
Where are we without hope?
Where are we?
Really, I mean, seriously, where are we without hope? Hope is everything. Hope is eternal.
This is a pretty big event. Every year I love it. What does this event mean to you?
Well, I just think it's great that you see so many people coming out to support, autism.
So we're here with Max Burkholder. There's a whole community of people that are going to love you no matter what you do, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, and that's the autism community. Are you okay with this? Is this a good thing?
I'm pretty okay with it. This seems to be a pretty happy, supportive community.
Well, what did you learn about autism through portraying this wonderful character?
Sort of the individuality of it, like with autism spectrum disorders, a tendency is to sort of generalize everybody with sort of the same degree of affliction as sort of exactly the same, and very generalize them a lot. But something I found while just talking to everybody, and that I tried to put into the characters, just the sense of individuality that all of them have, everybody has. And so at a certain point it became not really even portraying autism, it just sort of became portraying the character.
I want to thank you on behalf of everybody for what you do.
That's very sweet.
To bring awareness and to raise money. That's a tremendous, tremendous legacy. But as a dad, you've got other things that you're doing as well.
Yeah.
I want to know, as a family, if you have any advice, what's been something that's been helpful to you personally?
Get your autistic kids out in the community. I mean, my son's got a guide dog, so he goes to a lot of cool places. He surfs, he skis, does gymnastics. He's actually trying Hebrew school. I'm not quite sure if he knows what's happening there, but he does all kinds of cool things, and he has a lot of friends. Right now, most of his friends are the adults who take care of him, and over time, hopefully he'll have more friends who are his age, and you'll see him walking around and people won't be nervous around him. The dog's been very helpful with that. It's like the dog is like the most infectious thing in the world. Like everybody wants to be near the dog, and he sees that and he gets some of that affection laid onto him. So as a family, you know, we're just there to support Tyler and make him happy.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi, welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Lisa Ackerman. We're here doing allergy-free cooking, and I brought my sister with me today.
Jamie Davis, thanks for having me.
A lot of people are asking about a allergy-free breakfast, and breakfast can be full of crap.
But it's full of crap
cereal.
and it's hard to do. We
Yeah.
don't have time in the morning. We're in a hurry.
We're going completely nut-free. The recipe is not
Personality, we can't do anything
can't do
about.
anything about that. So we're going to start off first with, I'm using sorghum and brown rice flour. I find the texture good, and I've added some flaxseed meal. We talked about that last time, flaxseed meal for poop. Almost every one of our kids has a poop issue. What's next on the recipe is the quinoa flakes, baking powder, cinnamon, and the xanthan gum. It brings the glutinous texture back into the flour, and often what happens with these recipes is they can fall apart. This one holds up nicely. I like it. For the folks that are egg-free, we have a ton of egg replacers. One of those can be the arrowroot starch or bringing back some additional flaxseed. So there's a lot of options to go eggless, but we're going to go egg full in this one. For sweetener, I use the maple syrup. I stay away from refined sugar. What I'm adding now is the coconut milk, maple syrup, and a little bit of the coconut oil. And we're going to add in the raisins, craisins, and chocolate chips at the end. I find that chocolate chips can coax people to eat some really amazing things. When we started, Jeff had 42 food allergies, so we had to get creative in how we cooked. So nuts were a big, big issue. What I like now is that he can tolerate so many more things after start doing this diet. So let me show you how you can deal with this sticky stuff here. You get your fingers really wet, and you can push it down. So my oven has been preheated. It's at 350 degrees. So we're gonna just throw this in. Like I said, I like it around 23 minutes, and the magic oven says, I'm done. Looks like. Don't you love magic ovens? They're awesome. There we go, pops right out. The texture of these, and it's so pretty. It looks almost like a big chocolate chip cookie, but you actually made it healthy. But you can be my guinea pig. Tell me what you think.
That looks really good.
Doesn't it? So the textures and the colors in there are just beautiful. So the raisins are for you, the chocolate chips are for your kid.
I can't believe it's gluten-free.
I know, right? It doesn't taste like, crap. We're wrapping up another cooking show. If you have feedback, you can email us at autismlive@gmail.com. We're, of course, on Facebook. You could go to facebook.com/autismlive. And, of course, Talkin' Now has thousands of recipes. Join me there, and we can cook some more later on. So thanks for joining us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
We are back with Let's Talk Autism, and today Shannon is down in New Orleans with the Autism Society of America's National Conference. We just spoke to her on the telephone. She's having a great time down there, all kinds of fascinating speakers, and you can go to the Autism Live Facebook page, and she will be streaming live some of the interviews, so I encourage you to do that. I thought I'd take the opportunity today to talk a little bit about the work we do at ACT Today, Autism Care and Treatment Today. As most of you know, I serve as the executive director of that organization, and I have been doing that for about a decade now, and very, very proud to do that work. And it's really has been a calling for me ever since my own son, Wyatt, was diagnosed around the age of 3, not really adequately diagnosed until he was 4. And it took me such a long time to figure out how to access care and treatment for him. In my former life, we're going to be showing you some slides here that are going to show you some of our programs. But in my former life, I was a television producer and executive. I was vice president of Westinghouse Television, which is now a part of CBS Viacom. I produced many shows, including the long-running NBC talk show Lisa, Vicki with Vicki Lawrence, a show called PM Magazine that was syndicated all over the country. And I was one of those career women that kind of forgot to have the child. And then at the age of 45, my husband Reed and I started pursuing having a child. And due to his cancer diagnosis, which he battled off and on for 23 years, we looked into adoption. And after some failed adoptions and an adoption scam that was sort of worthy of a TV soap opera, we successfully adopted a baby from, there's my Wyatt. If I move this way, okay. This picture you see right next to me shows Wyatt before regression. I clearly remember that. The other photos show him after his regression, around year and a half, 2, is when I noticed him drifting away. He was totally on his developmental markers during his first year. We were deliriously happy. He was a beautiful, healthy baby boy, and he started to I started to first notice the differences sometime during his second year, that he became fussier, inability to sleep, very, very hyperactive. I think around 2, I really started to notice the difference in his development and his peers. Of course, I did not have other children, so I wasn't familiar with kind of how children developed. And a lot of people brushed it off as the terrible 2s. And sometime during his second year, I put him into speech therapy, which was recommended by the preschool he was at. And that speech therapist never discussed autism with me. At that point, this was in 2004, the only thing I knew about autism was from seeing some autistic children when my brother was younger. I had a brother with Down syndrome, and I used to work with David at camps during the summer. And I remember once going into a classroom and going over to a boy who was in the corner, and he was rocking, and he was nonverbal, and he was rocking and going like this. And I remember saying to the leader of that particular day camp, let me go over and take this boy outside. And she said, "Oh, you'll never reach him. He won't be able to talk to you." And I said, "Well, is he deaf? Is he?" And she said, "No, he has something called autism, and he's locked in his own world." And yet those words reverberate to me now. You'll never reach him. He has something called autism. He's locked in his own world. That's what was thought at the time. This was in the late 1970s, and usually children like that were put in institutions. So I did have a lot of experience with special needs children because my brother had Down syndrome, and he lived with my parents up until his death at age 36. But autism was something that I thought of as locked in their own world. And the only symptoms I knew were hand flapping and toe walking. Wyatt did neither one. So when around the age of 3, a neighbor suggested to me that he might be autistic, I was very upset. And I said, well, I don't see any evidence that he has autism. And I called my pediatrician, and he kind of scoffed and said, you know, this is sort of the latest trendy disorder, and I see no evidence that Wyatt has autism. And I said, well, you haven't seen him since his 2-year checkup. And I had called him a few times saying that Wyatt had been having multiple tantrums a day, you know, put his head through our kitchen window twice. And he said, well, boys are often delayed with language. Long story short, I took Wyatt in, and that day the pediatrician told me that he did not know what was wrong, but Wyatt was at least a year delayed. So then I went on that wild goose chase of finding out what the matter was. It took another year to get really an adequate diagnosis. He was not only autistic at that point, he was moderately autistic. And prior to that, he had been diagnosed with PDD-NOS by the school district. And I put him in a preschool that had other children, typical children, blended. But their improvements weren't happening. I had no idea about ABA, had not even heard about it. And then when he was 4 years old, I went to a conference, and I heard Dr. Doreen Granpeche speak. And I heard the words ABA, Applied Behavioral Analysis. And then I heard a brilliant doctor, a biomedical doctor named Dr. Andrew Levinson out of Florida, speak about the influence of toxicity and environmental triggers in our children. And I remember calling my husband that day and saying, I finally found someone who's going to help our child. And a short time later, when Wyatt was just under 5, he received ABA therapy 30 hours a week beginning then. And he's still in ABA therapy, and we've done intensive biomedical. So moving on, Matt, I think everybody that watches our show knows that 1 in 68 children has a diagnosis of autism today. Boys, there's 1 in 42 boys. We also know that the autism prevalence figures are growing. It's the fastest growing developmental disorder in the U.S., and autism costs a family $60,000 a year on average. So, Act Today, you can go to the next slide there, Matt. The quarterly grant program that we have is where families around the country can apply for up to $5,000 for a grant for autism care and treatment. This is one of our grant moms in between me and Susan Campbell-Cross, who is one of our biggest supporters at Act Today. We pay providers directly to track where the money goes. Parents decide what to apply for and which provider, and parents can apply for anything that falls under care and treatment. This includes ABA, speech therapy, iPads, summer school, GPS tracking devices, sensory tools, biomedical treatments, supplements, social skills groups, and more. Our impact is funds granted, $1,375,000 to date, and number of grants given to date, 1,425. You see we reach all over the country. We have our Act Today for Military Families program. People want to know why that program. It's only one of ours, but that's because military families with autism endure really intense stressors as they fight the complex bureaucracy to get the services. They move on average every 2 years, and lengthy combat deployments and other things make that particularly difficult. We also have Act Today Espanol. That is Gabriela Tessier, who is an anchor at Univision, who's on our board, and Senator Kevin De Leon, the current president of the California Senate. And we formed this to enhance autism awareness because the Latino population experienced the largest jump in autism rates than any other group, according to a survey in 2011. And so since 2014, we have hosted free autism conferences in Spanish across the country, across California. Safety Today, another big program, safety fencing, GPS, tracking devices, autism assistance dogs. Children with autism, of course, LOPE, Drowning is the #1 cause of death in children with autism, and safety is often as simple as swim safety lessons, which we have sponsored, GPS tracking devices, safety fences. This is Romario Snow with me getting a tracking device. Romario was on the streets for a month before he was found. We featured that case extensively on Autism Live. So we have ABA today, and we also pay for copays. There I am with Wyatt a few years back. We have assisted technology today as one of our programs that provides iPads and apps for children. Now I have with me Viridiana Zuniga. Viridiana, thanks for coming on today and joining me. Viridiana is our grant assistant here at Act Today. And Viri, you're really the first, we call you Viri, you're really the first line of contact with the public.
I am.
Yes. So tell us what, first of all, give us information about how the grant process works. How do families apply for a grant? What would be the first step?
Well, our grants are given on a quarterly basis, like you said. We have 4 a year, where the third one is actually on its way. The last day for families to apply is July 31st for this one. And we usually encourage families to apply online on our website, which is act-today.org. They can find the application there, but we understand that some families don't have access to a computer. Some of families are applying for a computer or an iPad. So if they don't have access to a computer, they can definitely reach us at the office through email, and I'm usually the one that picks up the phone. So I'll help them. Either I'll send them the application, or if they're having difficulties filling out the application online, I'll guide them. I actually spent like 2 hours with a mom last week because she needed step-by-step information on how to fill it out, and that's what I'm here to do. So I'm glad I'm able to do a little bit for them to help get the help that they need.
Yeah, you know, Viridiana, as an autism mom, and I know our viewers out there can relate to this. There are days, and now being a single mom with my husband having passed away this past January, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. And that's why I got into this, you know, advocating for families and being an advocate for autism care and treatment. Oftentimes for moms, we have a hard time just getting through the day and doing the things we need to do for our kids. And when you've got a child with autism in that mix, and possibly even more than one, it can be so overwhelming to have to go to a website to apply for a grant and to get all the materials. What are some of the materials that we do require, because by law we need to have these?
Yeah, we try to keep it not as many things, but there are 3 things that families do need to upload or send to us here in the office. They need to upload a proof of diagnosis from a doctor, school, IEP. We don't want them to go out and spend out money that they don't have. So whatever they already have, that's what they send to us. We also need provider information. So if they're applying for an iPad, we just want to know what type of iPad they want, how much it's going to cost. And we also need a tax return. Some families think, oh, are you looking only at our income? No, but we do need to look at low-income families, how much they make. But it's not the only thing our board members look at.
That's right.
Right. So they also look at the family situation. Some families have very sad stories, and that moves our board members. So, I mean, we always encourage them to put their story in there, because, like I say, it's not the only thing we look at their income. We want to know a little bit about them.
Right. That's true. I want to, Matt, how much time do we have left? Okay. I do want to say that we would love to give out grants to every single family that applies. I don't think there's a single family that applies that isn't deserving.
Right.
But funding is an issue. All of our funds are raised privately, all of them. We don't receive any government assistance. We don't receive any grants through any federal programs. We occasionally will get grants from other organizations, but that's rare. So if you know of a way that you can help, If you want to throw a small fundraiser, we're doing an Act Across America campaign this summer and fall. Please spread the word. Go to act-today.org. And Viri, I want to thank you for joining us.
No,
and
thank
you
you for
are
having me.
also bilingual. I want to say
Yes.
that if a family needs to speak to Viri and wants to speak in Spanish, tell us the number that they can reach you.
They can reach us at 818-340-4010. I'm going to say it in Spanish. 818-340-4010.
Okay. All right. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I miss my buddy Shannon. She'll be back next week. And meanwhile, as she would say, give your kiddos a hug from me. And I say, give yourselves a hug from me. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye.